Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society, bringing you our nightly update. And boy, do we have a few things to talk about tonight. The Western Pacific has gone absolutely crazy in the last 24 hours, but we'll get to that at the end of the program. First, we're going to do the Atlantic Basin. And of course, we do have Tropical Storm Gabrielle out there. And we also have another wave just exiting the African mainland here with a 20% chance of development over the next 7 days. So we'll take a quick dive down here into Gabrielle. And actually, if you guys don't mind, I am going to open up another tab on Gabrielle because we do have satellite imagery on this. And as the sun goes down, let's go back one more so you all can see the center of circulation very clearly here on Gabrielle. And then as the sun is starting to go down, we've got this large flare up of convective activity here off on its eastern and northeastern quadrant. So it is maintaining its overall strength and is now forecast to strengthen this weekend. Currently, it is located at 20.8 north, 52.7 west, about 700 miles east-northeast of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds of 50 miles an hour. Movement is west-northwest at 13 miles an hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,004 millibars. Currently, there are no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and currently there are no hazards affecting land. I say currently for a reason. If we take a look here at the forecast cone, we notice that there is quite an expansive little wind field for a 50-mile-an-hour tropical cyclone. And as you could see, we'll show that this is going to forecast to strengthen, and the tropical storm force wind percentages have slightly ticked up for Bermuda, even though Bermuda is outside of the cone. So watches and or warnings may end up being needed for Bermuda later on. There's still quite a bit of uncertainty left in the track, but we will have to wait and see. So it is recommended for the folks here in Bermuda to just please keep a very close eye on this as we go forward. If we take a look at the spaghetti plots, now all of the spaghetti plots have it well away from the island of Bermuda, which is located right there. And as you can see, as this were to get up and bend out, the question is, does the tropical storm force wind field touch Bermuda? That's the question. And with its recent forecasted intensification, as you could see here, noted within this column of numbers, which represents our knots. That's not a very good, here, we'll just do it like this. These represent the forecast intensity by knots, and a few of them do get to 100 knots would be considered a major hurricane at this point, and the consensus itself is at 96 knots. So we're going to have to really kind of keep an eye on this just to see if it does get a large enough wind field to be able to have some peripheral impacts to Bermuda at the current forecast. I do expect the forecast to change a little bit going forward here because that is noted in the discussion, which we will look at here momentarily. Now, here we are on Brian Tang's website, and we're taking a look at the last few advisories and track adjustments from the National Hurricane Center. As you can see here, there is quite a bit of uncertainty when we get up here, and the overall track itself recently it has performed well within the track, but it has missed it a couple times going forward. So there could still be a little few adjustments that have to take place as far as like, the consolidation totally of the storm itself. Um, if we take a look at the most likely arrival time for tropical storm force winds here for Bermuda would be sometime after sunset on Sunday. So Sunday night, overnight hours, that is when it is forecasted to make what would be its closest approach. Now, depending on where it is, as we could see, the wind field could potentially extend out that far. That is not meaning that will be the size of the wind field. Here are our wind tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. Now, what this shows is that Bermuda right here is just inside our 30 to 40% bracket in this yellow color right here. This would certainly be enough. Most likely, I've seen it many, many a times that this right here is enough to trigger watches. So if this holds on its current, thinking, we could very well see tropical storm watches for our friends in Bermuda. So please, folks, just monitor the forecast over the coming days and be prepared to make preparations for impacts if it is warranted. Now, getting into the forecaster's discussion. What we've got here is basically the justification for it keeping in its intensity with this current advisory and that there are some thunderstorms. This second one kind of gives an idea as far as its overall track, but and it's not its track, but its overall intensity and how there is a little bit of variance there as well, and the justification for them bringing it up to 100 miles an hour and could go higher with subsequent advisories as they are issued. Mainly the 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Paragraph 3, though, this one is kind of interesting. So, and it, excuse me, this has, influence and potential impact and interest to our friends here in Bermuda. Gabrielle is moving west-northwest at 13 knots and should maintain this track with a bend towards the northwest over the next few days as the storm is steered primarily by a subtropical ridge over the central Atlantic. A turn towards the north and northeast is forecast to occur late this weekend and early next week when Gabrielle rounds the western periphery of the ridge and a frontal system approaches from the west. While the guidance envelope has shrunk on this forecast cycle, there are some significant speed differences, with the Euro and GFS model considerably faster than the Google DeepMind Ensemble. Although no significant changes to the forecast were made, confidence remains on the lower side given the long track model spread and an unclear intensity forecast beyond 48 hours. Interest in Bermuda should continue to monitor Gabrielle over the next several days. So that basically is what that says, kind of summing all that up in short term. Its intensity will then influence its track. So, and its overall speed. So we're gonna have to, just see as these models begin to become a little bit more clear as we start to approach, closer and closer to the event, as stated, the closest approach to Bermuda. We should get some kind of updated information well before we get it there in and around Bermuda. Taking a look at the intensity models from Cyclonic WX here, as we could see, there is quite a bit of uncertainty with the overall intensities, but a majority of them do bring it up here into potential hurricane status. H-Wharf being the lead here, up here at around 125 miles an hour. But then succumbing to the shear and the impending trough and frontal boundary that it would be approaching. Now, let's go ahead and jump out to the ensembles. Now, tonight we're going to discuss kind of a battle here, and it's something between the physics-based models with the Euro and the GFS, and then our AI models showing two completely different solutions here tonight. So some of them are similar, but there's one particular feature that is absolutely different. And that signal is very concerning. It's not a guarantee, but it's definitely got my attention. If we take a look going out 10 days with the Euro legacy ensembles, we have Gabrielle. That's it. We've got a couple little circles here and there, a little scratch mark out here with our one wave. We can forget that little dot right there. A couple little spots, of low pressure areas, a couple along the coastline here, non-tropical frontal boundary hanging through. Not a lot with a lot of, potential development out here into the Eastern Pacific. There's not a lot here. Okay. I'm going to skip tabs and I'm going to jump to the GEFS. Again, out 240 hours. We're out 10 days. A very similar solution. Although we have a couple more down here with something, there's not really a large signal. We have just a couple little blips here and there, nothing to be concerned with. The larger signal being out here into the Eastern Pacific and moving on. Both of these are out 10 days. Now, let's see what the battle is, because right now you see nothing. And these are the ensembles, the physics-based ensembles, like the supercomputer ensembles. Let me show you what the AI is looking like. And it's quite different. As we can see, this goes out 10 days. We have a very, very clear view of Gabrielle. That matches. We've got this area here that there's not a lot on. That matches. But take a look at this. That's a whole lot of circles. And I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit on that. And as we could see, out of 50 ensemble members, this has definitely got my attention. Because you're talking about well over, I'd say, maybe close to half, with a pocket of development potentials kind of stretched like this. Now, it could develop here, it could develop here, it could develop here, it could develop up here into the southwestern Atlantic. The AI does not know. It is a wide swath of development potential here. Now, this is out 10 days. All right. Now, if we compare that to the Google DeepMind, which has performed quite well this season, did impressively well. As you can see, I'm out here in the Western Pacific because I've got concerns, but we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. All hell broke loose out there. I'm not going to lie. So we have Gabrielle. So we'll come back to day 0. And now we're going to come forward and we're going to take it out to 10 days. As you can see, we've got a little something from that first wave that went off the board yesterday. As you can see, day 8, day 9, day 10. Now at this point, out of 50 ensemble members, this is enough to grab my attention, for sure. The physics-based models do not agree, but the other AI model does agree. We're getting here to the end of September, starting to get close to the first week of October. It's climatologically very possible that something could develop. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to. We're way out in the long range with this. But the signal through the AI models have been consistent over the last couple days of just trending in that general direction as to saying, hey, development may be possible in this area at the end of the month, which, like I said, climatologically would line up. There's no guarantee with it. It may not develop. It may try to develop something here further up and end up into the southwestern Atlantic if anything develops at all. This is not 50 dots. I mean, I'll pull the members here, and the reason that I bring this up is because if something is there, well, that could present a problem. You can have all the excuse me. You can have all the fuel that you want. The question is, do you get a spark? That's the question. If we pull up some of the ensemble members from the old Google DeepMind, the first version, there's not as many, but there are a couple there. All right. Now, if we include the euro, we're out 10 days, so we're going to be at the euro's limitations. But as you can see, there's a couple, not a lot. All right, there's not enough to say, hey, look, they're, like we need to watch this. Not at this time. But that is, you just go with probability. For each dot you see, allocate 2%. Here, I'll shut it off. For each dot that you see here in this region, I'll get the crayons. Each dot you see in that region, allocate 2% to each blue dot. That's what we do. That's what we're looking at. The ones that are down here are of the utmost concern. This is a signal that is just enough to request that folks just come back and pay attention to the National Hurricane Center's updates. That's all we ask. We're in the middle of peak season right now. We just want to make folks potentially aware of something that may exist. That's all. We're not hyping. We're definitely not telling you that something is coming. It's just something that warrants a little extra attention. Make sure you check back with the National Hurricane Center. The question is, we're out 10 days, okay? Now, I'll come back to 9, 8 on the Euro AI, 9, 10. So we get a lot of increased signal here with day 10 from the Euro AI. So the question is now going to become, in about 48, 72 hours, being that we're looking at day 10, Do we see a small highlighted area from the National Hurricane Center that may include areas of the Western Caribbean? We don't know. We don't. But if that were to occur, we at least had a couple extra days heads up on it, just as far as the signal is concerned. It's not a guarantee, not even in the slightest. That's not even a 50-50 chance. But it's enough to say, hey, wait a minute, hold on. The AI model, it's basically a battle between the AI and the physics-based models right now, as far as the signal is concerned. Who wins? We don't know. The AI models haven't really been out very long. So who wins? Unfortunately, we got to wait to figure out what the answer is. And right now, there is just enough of a signal to say, hey, folks, keep an eye on this. I've been telling everybody for days, you got to watch these little undeveloped waves because you never know. You could get a signal much later on down the road. And for long-term residents who've lived in the state of Florida, especially along the Gulf Coast, we know. We've seen this. We've just seen this before. And it's enough to where it's like, okay, that's that signal. Let's hope it doesn't happen. And let's hope that this signal goes away over the next couple days and joins in with the physics-based model. And let's hope that the physics-based model doesn't end up joining in and with the AI models. Right now, who wins? We'll find out soon. Okay, and as far as halves is concerned and what we may see from Gabrielle here, just kind of in a wind formation type thing, I was looking at it, and as you could see, our greens and halves A really doesn't have a lot on it, and maybe getting into the upper 20s of sustained, or mid to upper 20s for sustained winds. If we flip over to B, it's even less. So the question is that A has a much wider and weaker storm, as to where B has a much stronger and tighter circulation on the storm itself. The wind field is much more compact around the core compared to what A is showing, to where the wind field, especially on the eastern side, extends much further out than what halves B is calling for. So even within the model itself, granted they're two completely different versions, but there is some uncertainty as to what the intensity and the potential wind field of that intensity may look like going forward. So it's questionable. All right, now our seeds, basically, quote unquote, air quote there, our 850 millibar cyclonic relative vorticity models, these with the GFS on the right and the Euro on the left. This represents our areas of spin approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface. We are looking to see, obviously, where Gabrielle goes, and then where do these other two waves, one being located right here, we'll get our bearings before we run this forward. We have the wave that was taken off the board yesterday there, the wave that is still on the board there. We have our other two right here, so they do line up and match, and would be expected to, being that they are taking a snapshot of the conditions at the time of initiation. And so we can kind of get an idea. We've got our high pressure here kind of going like with the 156 line like that. And we've got our high pressure here that again kind of goes like this. And there's a reason why you do this, and it's just to look for similarities, to making sure that they are both starting off right on, in agreement with one another. You've got the low back here and the low back here. So everything is in pretty decent agreement. This is when we start to run it forward and see where the variabilities start to really get themselves, different, so to say. So now we're out 48 hours. We don't really see much difference. There are, some pretty decent similarities. We'll come out 72. We'll go 96. Now we're at 120. They're still all in pretty similar agreement at this point, although there's a slight difference. We have our wave 1 here, wave 1 here. There's a little bit of a difference, just a little bit, not a lot, but one is a little bit further west than the other. Then we have our other wave here and another wave here. We've got other areas of looks like little vorticity here and another one that kind of shows up the signal there. So all in all, they're still in decent agreement at this point. The high pressure is still also oriented quite similarly. So we're out 5 days and we're looking good. Now, as we roll this forward, we're going to get this out to day 7. And this is where the physics model and the AI models really start to diverge in my hypotheses. One thing, we do have a bowling ball type low pressure here and a little bit of a difference there. Some difference with the low pressure here and the low pressure there. We're out by day 7. We would expect and almost see with certainty that we would get some difference. Now, our other wave is kind of up here, like in this region here. And the GFS is also calling for it up here, not traveling through here and not down here. Maybe a little part of it on its southern axis might be rolling through, but for the most part, the energy ends up what seems to be into the southwestern Atlantic. Now, as we continue to roll this forward, you will see that the GFS does try to get just a little bit of a signal, just a little bit of energy, not really a signal at all, but just some energy right in here. The euro, not so much. It would be right there, if you really wanted to call it. So, but a dramatic difference by the time that we get out to day 10, because we have a high pressure, and we've got a low digging in right here that is trying to create a little bit of a weakness that would allow, if something were to develop here as a low pressure, should tap this in. But we've got a high over this way. If we look at the euro, we've got that trough still hanging down like this, and anything is already open and out. So big differences where by the time that we get out this far where the models are concerned. Now, if we tie this all in with our mid-level and low-level humidity, on the top we have our 500 millibar, and on the bottom we have our 700 millibar levels. On the left we have the euro, and on the right we have the GFS. Now, our browns represent our dry colors, or our dry air, and our greens and light blues represent moist air. We do know that the dry air across the basin this year has been a inhibitor to tropical cyclone activity across the Atlantic. By the time that we get out to day 4, we can clearly see that Gabrielle has tried to get by Bermuda there and is lifting out into the open waters of the northern Atlantic. So the question is, now it's time to come back and take a look at what we have as far as the moisture from our other waves. So the GFS is the one that really kind of highlights it the most. As you can see here, there is a decent amount of moisture with that wave. But the big difference is the Euro has a great amount of dry air there with that wave like this, having to go through all of that dry air, which leaves the moisture going to the north of the Greater Antilles. With the lower levels at the 700 millibar level, as you could see, there is our wave there, still battling some dry air for sure. But the Euro doesn't have much at all. The dry air has completely overcome it, and it has, basically succumbed to the hostile conditions out there. Now we're going to roll this forward a little bit further, and we're going to take this out to day 7. As you could see, now we're going to line things up again. The GFS has a decent amount of moisture here with that wave. The GFS also has a large difference with the Euro calling for a very powerful low pressure system right here over the United States mainland. The GFS, their low pressure is much further up there. And as we could see in result, there is quite a bit of moisture down here south of where that is. Look at the difference between the dry air on the Euro, I'll erase our circles, and what we have as far as over on the left-hand side of the graphics. Look at the dry air, look at the moist air. There's a huge difference. All right. Now, as we continue, especially in the 700 millibar level, as we continue to roll this forward, we can see that the moisture associated with that first wave and the stalled out frontal boundary here with the GFS does begin to allow some consolidation, or what seems to be a little bit of consolidation of some of that moisture somewhere potentially in that region, as to where the Euro is basically saying there's a small strip of moisture left over, but not a lot. And as you could see through the Gulf, another frontal boundary there and approaching, and the GFS, I mean, it's a big question. There are some significant variations between them. Once they get out, they line up halfway decent in the beginning, but they diverge quite a bit by the time we get out this far, and therefore trying to figure out which one is going to be correct is virtually impossible. It's a coin flip. And then you tack that in with the AI, and things become quite interesting. Now, we still have one component of tropical cyclone development that we have yet to discuss, and that is the wind shear. We have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This is our 200 to 850 millibar deep layer wind shear graphic. This represents from approximately 5,000 feet to 40,000 feet in the atmosphere. As we run this forward, you will see that the Caribbean doesn't really have a lot. Now, there is quite a bit of a difference with the amplification of a low pressure system here with the GFS. We kind of have a trough here with the Euro, but it is nowhere near as strong as what we have there on the GFS. Nonetheless, we still have shear, a little bit of shear, right here going through day 5. Okay, this is where things really get kind of interesting, in my opinion. As we get to day 7, you can see that there is an upper level low associated with the GFS that creates a very hostile environment over from about Jamaica southward, or from Jamaica southward all the way back to the east. Very hostile. There's a pair of upper level lows that are creating a quite a shear vector over a good portion of the Caribbean. The euro is in a similar thinking with a little bit of a disjointed look as far as the low pressure is concerned, and maybe bringing it more into the eastern Caribbean instead of trying to get it out here more towards the eastern tip of Cuba. So it's a little bit of a slight difference that makes quite a bit of variance, as we could see here coming through like this, and then you've got the winds coming around like this. All of these areas of light blue and white are low shear environments, so we would obviously not want to see anything get within those areas. The big reason that we're going through this in such detail is to try to pick out the fine details, the kind of like the little fine-tuned details, to see if the AI model may be right or the AI model may be wrong. The one thing that really catches my eye, if you look here on the euro, there's not a lot of shear at all. I mean, you get a little bit right here at day 10, but that's quite a expansive little area to where we don't have a lot of upper level winds or winds changing with height. Come back and we'll hit it again. Like you're talking about an area somewhere similar and in that area as to where the GFS unfortunately has an area here with what looks to be the development of a Central American gyre. Possibly. Fun times there. All right. Now, our dust. It's unbelievable that we're still talking about the Saharan dust here, getting into the middle of the second week of September, starting to close in on the third week of September, and we're still talking about Saharan dust having impacts to the basin. And as you could see, a lot of areas of rotation and spin here are still getting encapsulated and or just completely eliminated by the Saharan air on top of the extra dry air that already exists in the basin. Okay, now our nightly update on our MJO. This is rolling back into the center of the circle, and though the ensembles may have a little bit of promise, it could bring it back out, it could bring it over here to the other side of the planet. We'll have to wait and see. Right now, when they get and they fall off into the center of the circle, as you could see, it could pretty much go anywhere. So we'll have to monitor that as we go forward. Looking into our Earth null, just to show everybody, we'll put our trusty green circle there on our on Gabrielle, and then we will come up approximately 6 miles above the ocean surface and show everybody that yes, there is and still remains a decent amount of shear impacting this system, with a well-defined upper level low here, still creating some havoc. I did not mean to draw that second line. And then another upper level low right here over, just north of Venezuela and stuff. It's kind of a certainly an interesting time right now in the tropics because the Atlantic has some intrigue with the differences of the models. And as you could see, we still got a ways to go before we're really done with the threat. And the global tropics hazards outlook also highlights into the last week of September. They're calling for, hey, maybe a conducive environment over here into the Western Gulf. But this, in that first week of October, that also includes the Western Caribbean. Not other than potentially getting out here for Bermuda. I'm not really concerned too much with these main development region storms. As long as they could stay away from our friends out here in the islands, uh, we're good to go. It can rip all it wants out here into the open waters and play with the fishes. But otherwise than that, I don't see a lot of serious threats coming from the main development region by the time we get to October. Still not, out of the woods for the folks there in like the northeastern Caribbean, but it would certainly be looking a lot better. It'd be very difficult for a system to make it all the way across before it would turn north. Okay, now we're going to jump out to the Eastern Pacific real quick. We're going to make a quick discussion. As you can see here, Invest 96L still has an 80% chance of development, is not anticipated or expected to develop into anything of serious threat at all. So we're not going to spend much time on it. There is the potential for something in behind that that may show up on the outlook over the next couple days from the National Hurricane Center. And if that becomes the case, that may pose a threat to land, but obviously we don't even have anything there. With the Euro legacy, that's what they were calling for, the Euro AI, saying absolutely not. So they are just competing with one another, basin to basin with the solution, saying no, this is what's going to happen, and the other one says no, no, no. What's up is down, and what's down is up. And if we compare that with the GEFS, as we could see going out through 7 days, it is the main part of that signal is the system potentially behind it. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how this all materializes, though there's only one thing on the outlook. So we'll wait and see exactly what they do. Getting out to the Western Pacific, this is where things just get absolutely haywire. We have Mitag, Ragasa, and Neoguri. And one of these three are not like the other. That much I can tell you. Neoguri, yes, typhoon. Mitag, tropical storm. Ragasa, an absolute monster in the making. This thing is, this is going to rival Aaron for the potential strongest storm, I believe, for the Northern Hemisphere this year. I believe this has got the best opportunity to compete for the strongest storm in the Northern Hemisphere this year. It's no joke. So, taking a look first with Mitag, as you can see, this is forecast to move towards Hong Kong and Macau, which are located right there. As you can see, not very strong, 40 knots, and coming in and going like that and opening up into a trough, falling apart and creating a lot of rainfall across this entire region. Okay, this is bad, folks. This is so bad. Let's take a look at where Ragasa would go. And this is known as Nandal in the Philippines, because there is no guarantee that this isn't going to impact at least with some indirect and peripheral impacts to the northern side of Luzon and all of these little islands out here. And there are a bunch of them. I'll show it to you on Google DeepMind here in a minute. But there is a whole bunch of little islands out there that people live on, and this is an absolute monster. Now, I can say that they are calling for 115 knots from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. But the folks here in Hong Kong and the Chinese affiliates are calling for this thing to become a super typhoon. Super typhoon would be 130 knots. The models are in agreement with that as well. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center, I hope it's only 115 knots. Let's put it to you that way. I hope so. Because after I get done showing you here Naguri, as you can see, maybe up to 95 knots with the intensification coming around a high pressure located to its north, and then eventually to its northeast as it comes around the western periphery of that high. It may, it's definitely typhoon status, and we'll see exactly where it goes and how far it gets, although there's not much out here to really worry about. It's in the open waters of the Pacific. But, all right, let's come back. This is insane. So, as you can see with the DeepMind does have a little bit of a difference to where maybe it flattens it out and spares the folks here in Hong Kong with a direct impact. But then at the same time, that gets a little bit closer to these islands out here. And as you can see, these folks here, ouch. I mean, these are all populated. We don't get downright crazy, but these are all populated, most of them. I can't say all. I'm sure some of the smaller ones, maybe not. I really don't know, but they're populated. I do know that there are quite a few people that live on these islands to the north. And as you could see, it is calling for it to potentially miss the overall island of Luzon. But let's be realistic. If you've got a 935 millibar, 117 knot category 4, which would basically be pretty close to getting into 135, 140 mile an hour Cat 4 system, this close, yeah, that's a problem. That's certainly a problem. What makes it really bad is the intensity distribution, and I'll even turn on the Euro. The experimental model, as you could see here, every single one of them on September 22nd at 0Z UTC, which would basically be Sunday, September 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, has it at every single one of the ensembles, have it at Cat 3 or stronger. The Euro is much different. There are some that turn this into an absolute monster. But then when you go off of what the Chinese authorities said there in Hong Kong, expecting and forecasting this particular storm to turn into a super typhoon, that would lend viability and credence towards what the DeepMind solution is. So, all eyes on that. All eyes on that. Because this one, again, everything looks really good for this to potentially become a rival for Aaron and the strongest storm in the Northern Hemisphere this year. All right, let's see here. Well, all right, everybody. Um, I'm not 100% sure, Betty. I know that they had a great amount of increased rainfall last year. Let's take a look. Let's go. Miss Betty has asked regarding the rainfall here in Africa and if they have seen any drought like conditions. Let's see. I mean, there are little areas, little low pressure, little waves. You could see there goes the seed. It does look like that the trough level. I'll look a little bit more into that for you, Miss Betty, and I'll let you know tomorrow night. I'll pull up the Eurostat information from Europe and see what I can find on that for you because it very well might be. And I do know where to look. I just don't want to waste everybody's time going through a whole bunch of different tabs trying to make that determination. So I will. I'll definitely have that info for you tomorrow night, ma'am, for sure. All right, everybody. I am going to go ahead and sign off here for tonight. We will be back live tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. So we'll see y'all then. We'll see if the AI models, who's going to win the battle? Is it going to be the AI models winning, or is it going to be our physics-based old school legacy models with those large billion-dollar supercomputers tied to them? And I really hope that that's who wins, because I would certainly not like to have to start forecasting something coming up from the Western Caribbean. That's always, as a native of Southwest Florida and a long time Florida native. Yeah, I don't want to watch that movie this year. It'd be really nice if we could just cancel that program, and we'll be good to go. So, have a wonderful evening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Good night.